We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts. Welcome to Storied San Francisco, a podcast all about the people and places that make this city unique. I'm Jeff Hunt, and I'll be your host. We're going way back on this one. In the summer of 2018, I had the good fortune of being seated next to Mike Lynch at my girlfriend's brother's birthday dinner. Mike and I hit it off, and that's putting it mildly. Turns out Mike owns and operates Babylon Burning, a screen printing shop in the south of Market that had recently achieved legacy business status. Back in those days, and for most of the time we've been doing this podcast, episodes were about people and their life stories. Now, in Season 5, we're focusing on places instead. And so, for this episode, we've edited Mike's Season 1 chat with us, down to the parts where he talks about Babylon Burning. There's also some good stuff in here about the city in general. Next week, you'll hear from Mike and his wife Judy about the new location of Babylon Burning, which opened last month on Howard Street. Here's Mike.
I was, partying too much and trying to get a new career. And so I got sober, which really helped me, and then started looking into going to school. And I went back to school. I couldn't figure out City College, so I started going to College of Marin. I was screen printing in the daytime, 8 hours, and then 3 hours over to Marin and back, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
But I did it. I did it for about 4 years, and didn't graduate from college. But then I went to paramedic school, thinking I was going to do a whole new direction. That didn't work out. And then I had a whole bunch of friends that worked at Babylon when Babylon was on 2nd and Howard Street.
Okay.
And this would be in the early 90s.
Okay.
Early 90s. My brother had some shirts in there that the old owner would print and did consignment for him. And so I had a whole bunch of friends that worked there. I knew about the place. But when Babylon moved to this location where it's at now at 63 Bluxom Street in 1989, right after the earthquake, I started working here part-time. I was going to school. I had quit Graphic Sportswear. I was working here sort of part-time, still going to school. And then I wanted to get away from printing altogether.
Well, I was going to ask real fast, what about this place made you want to work here versus...
Well, at the time, I just needed a job. And I had already had 10 years of screen printing, so I was a pretty experienced printer. While I was going to school, because I was thinking, paramedic, that's what I want to be, which didn't work out. But then I said, maybe I'll get on the other side of it. Maybe I'll get on sales. And then I got a gig at this place called Crux Productions, and I was doing sales. My boss at the time had Shepard Ferry as a client, and so I worked with Shepard, and I was really trying to help him push Obey. He and I were pretty close, and he would have these great designs, and I would try to go shop it on Haight Street. Everyone hated it, and but that boss was kind of a prick, and the Shepard thing, I could see that was he was trying to get away from this guy too, and so then I left there, and the old owner at Babylon, who I really liked, so, old surfer dude, super great guy, guy from Pacifica. He was a Vietnam vet. He named Babylon after, he was kind of a Rastafarian, surfer, Vietnam vet guy, super great, mellow guy. And then he also loved the Ruts and the song Babylon Burning, so he kind of named it after that.
What was his name?
His name's Steve Patton. He's still around. I still talk to him every once in a while. And he was looking to get rid of the business. He was kind of faltering. I remember that he had come over to Graphic Sportswear, kind of looking for work, because he was just burning out. He'd had the business for 20-something years. But he had a young guy working for him who, the minute I met him, he was me 12 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
He was this young punk rock kid, and Steve was the owner, and he really liked him, and he could feel his energy, and he really liked screen printing. He had a bunch of his friends working here. So I said I had gotten through the job at Crux Productions, and I needed a job. Paramedic school wasn't working out, and college wasn't working out. I said, his name was Brian. He was running it, and I said, listen, I need a job. I learned how to do sales. I'll come in there. You and I are kind of, once we met each other, we hit it off really good. And he's like, no. He's like, I can't afford to pay you. He goes, Steve has buried the business. He's just really far in debt, and I don't know how long it's going to last, I go, well, why don't I come down for a little bit, and we'll see how it goes, And once I got in here, seeing what was going on, really looking at all the history of Babylon, I'm like, it was not this job I just came from, like, hey, do you need some T-shirts? This embarrassing call. This is like calling the Castro Theater and saying, do you know that we're still around, and we used to print for you, and we want to print for you again? And they're like, great. We always love the owner. Calling the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, calling Everett Middle School, and just it snowballed. And within, the old owner was probably $200,000 to $300,000 in debt, and we had it paid off in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
damn.
we just meshed well.
Yeah.
And it was just working. Again, it wasn't cold calling. It was calling these existing clients.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, we're still here. Believe it or not, we're still here, and we're killing it. We're doing so great. And then Steve actually had he gave the business to Brian. He said, I'm done with it. You just take it over. And then he could see how well we were doing. He said, I think I'm coming back. And we said, nah, no, we'll buy it from you. And it got a little messy, but it all worked out. He said one price, another thing came up, but we worked it out because he's such a great guy, and he deserved everything he did. He deserved what this place was worth, and its history is amazing. Mm-hmm. So after we had multiple meetings, we're like, you're right. We'll pay you whatever you want. We paid off all this debt, and in 2 or 3 years, we should be fine, and the place should be humming. And it was. It was some great clients, great history of this place. And
so you and Brian co-owned it at that point?
Co-owned it at that point. He again, he was 12 years younger than me. He was just like me too, partier, going to shows. I was trying to start a family, had met a woman, we're going to have kids, and so we're definitely on different paths, but business sense, we could see what was going on. We're like, this is great. We're going to do well. And we were. But his partying days caught up to him too. He wasn't coming in. He had also hired a bunch of his friends who I know them, and they know me, and I don't think they think bad of me, but Brian was making them some promises like, hey, this business is going to be all of ours. But I could see it wasn't. There were 2 leaders that ran this place that went to the attorneys and that went to City Hall and did all the legal things to run a company, and it was us. They were kind of the workers that helped so much. But I wouldn't want to get in business with any of them.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of bad blood for a while, but then it all kind of worked out. And then Brian just kind of stopped coming in. I remember it because he had set up a meeting with the Hells Angels, San Francisco branch. And they were coming in on a Monday. And Brian wasn't here on a Monday. So I had to deal with them, which I think we had a relationship for about 10 years with them too. And but I knew, like, right then, I'm like, this is getting too much. I'm taking on everything. And then he stopped basically coming in, and then he left. He just, as a not thinking 23-year-old, he just walked away from the business.
23.
Yeah,
Yikes.
25 maybe.
Yeah.
Just up and walked away. So I gave him some money, but not what he should have got. But he said, "Give me a couple of grand and I'll sign over the business," and I did, and then I've been running it ever since. And that was like probably 2001. I owned it by myself. And all the old kids that used to work here, because of course I'm so old and I've been here for so long that I've gone through like 5 waves of employees.
Generations.
And they all come back, and I don't think anyone has any bad blood, because I think I'm a pretty good owner. I really learned well from an asshole boss that, a couple asshole bosses, that you can just, if you treat people halfway decent and give them money and insurance, they'll respect you and like do things for you. Like, hey, that would really suck if I didn't go in on a Monday because I know that Mike is stressed out and we got all this work. And he pays all my insurance, and he pays us like kind of union wages. I think that works,
How many employees do you have right now?
9. So it's a pretty big ship.
Yeah. Are they like mix of full-time, part-time, or? It's
all full-time. Well, people leave early for school a couple of days a week, but it's mostly all full-timers.
Yeah.
It is. It's all full-timers. They might just 35 hours or so. But kids with, guys with kids, everyone's a kid compared to me. But they all, most of them have families and are married, and which is really great too. It works out good. I feel like I don't really have the young guys that I'm worried about are going to go running away. So they're kind of like, we're all kind of in it.
Yeah.
So, and it's at the moment right now, it's at a good pace right now. So
cool.
And the art gallery too, that's inside here at 63 Bluxom Street Gallery, is another joy of mine, because as much as I love Babylon, just like anything, you doing this podcast after 10, 20 years, you're going to be like, I need a little bit of something else. And this gallery has really done that for both my wife and I. It's like our little escape to have these little shows every other month. And I'm blessed to have it.
Yeah, it's cool because it's technically in the shop, same thing, but it's so different.
It is.
Like you said, I think you just called it an escape.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
It's like it.
And everything is like, as necessity would have it, everything is like machinery and chemicals and everything. And then you come in here and it's like white walls and art.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know. It was great because I wish I had pictures of it before. I think we do have pictures of it. Was all oil, car parts, and like oil, like toxic crap in this room. And then my brother moved back from LA, and he was looking for something to do, and he's an artist, and we just both looked at this room, and I'm like, I think we could turn it into like a little gallery, which was great because in turn the old owner of this building used to have an art gallery here in the 60s, so it worked out really great. And he's passed away, but when we opened this place, the gallery 7 years ago, he was like, came to the first show. He was so happy that we're trying to still keep the arts here, and it's hard. I definitely want to touch on that. Like, the struggles of a small, business, because this climb that I've had since I've owned it since 1999. Like I said, we took off. Brian and I took off, and I've gone through everything. I've gone through the .com burst. I've gone through the recession, and it only got better. Believe it or not, like the .com one was just people stopped advertising in magazines, so they got T-shirts to have walk-in billboards where they were spending $20,000 on, in San Francisco magazine, or maybe that's a bad example, but of a local magazine, or even like a high-end magazine like Wired, where they'd spend $20,000 to run ads. Now they'd have walking billboards for like $3,000. So we actually did better, and kind of the same thing in the recession. People were like looking to save money on print and other things, and then they went with T-shirts. But as great as it's been for the last 17 or so years, last year was a little struggle. I still haven't figured out what it is, I just think it's the changing San Francisco. And I've really seen it change. And every time I'm like that grandpa, like, oh, the neighborhood's changing. I mean, these tech companies are doing a lot of work with me, but they're sort of fickle too, and they can come and go. I've had a million of them, so that's why I have been for the last, since it slowed down a little bit in 2017. I've always pushed local. I've always said local, but not until I felt a little desperate, or I felt a little crunch in my, in my numbers, that I'm like, I truly, it's not just a word anymore, right? It's like, if Everett Middle School and 826 and McSweeney's and Electric Works and the local bar next door, and if they're not printing with me, my doors are closed. They really are. If Tornado is not printing with me, my doors are closed. It's true. It's so true. So, and then I think it's just the change in San Francisco, and I praise San Francisco, even City Hall, for trying to save us, and that's where a couple of years ago they came up with the legacy businesses, right? Trying to save small businesses in San Francisco. And once we heard about that, we jumped right on it. We're actually the oldest screen printer in San Francisco now.
Okay.
Because the company I used to work for, Graphic Sportswear, but then they left. They left to move down South San Francisco. It kind of sucks that people figured out how good San Francisco was. That was the thing. Like, when we moved out here in the 80s, you're like, nobody knows about this place? Of course. San Francisco has such a history, the hippies and before that, right? I mean, such a history. But I don't think that you don't really know until you come here, right? Like, sitting on the stoop in December drinking a beer in your shorts. I put this pair of shorts on in 1987, and I haven't taken them off. And my wife's mother said, when she met me, she's like, does he own a pair of pants? Because I always wear shorts. I'm really lucky. I'm really grateful, and I never forget that. And maybe that's part of the reason why I do give back. Like I mentioned before, to 826 Valencia, like, I would print their stuff for free, because I feel this sense of like gratitude towards San Francisco, and feel so lucky to have what I have. Like, I feel like I need to give back. So,
what comes along with getting legacy business status? What kind of protections?
Becoming a legacy business, there's certain incentives for your landlord to sign longer leases. You get, which I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have to do this before October. You get grant money, I think, for each employee that works here. I don't know what that is, but I hope that they just give us some money and I'll just give it to the workers. I mean, or maybe we start a fund or do something with it, And then they're trying to brand it, right? They're trying to turn it around. It's not just saying that you're the oldest screen printer. They're trying to brand it to San Francisco and to San Franciscans as, listen, you have to use these companies first, these legacy businesses, or they're going to be gone. I guess that's what happened in New York, right? It's like they woke up one day and they're like, shit, all these small businesses are gone. And it's because of the commercial spots that they had, these greedy owners either turned them into condos or whatever and kicked out all the small businesses. But I guess in New York, they actually have rights now for commercial space, which we need in San Francisco. I heard it's a pipe dream. It'll never happen because the developers would never go for it. But, you know, even me here, I mean, if some developer really wanted to come in here, we'd be out. You know, I have a lease, but that's a lease.
They'd figure out a way around it.
They'd figure out a way around it. Yeah. So I don't know. Oh, so for the legacy business, they're trying to brand it. They're trying to get, and I also became a city supplier, and I'm hoping that that's going to help to do more local stuff. Which now, if the city hall or whoever comes to someone needs something for the city. Maybe it's the San Francisco Marathon or maybe something else, that they'll go to legacy businesses first. And legacy businesses aren't just screen, they're anything, right? Like when I got my legacy business, it was Slim's, a yoga studio. Oh, shit, I feel bad. I don't remember the name of it. The Lab, which is a great place on 9th Street. Star and Plow.
You mean other places that got their status as well?
Got their status.
Okay.
And there's only going to be like 200 or 300 of them. And I think they already got 160 now.
Oh, they've capped the entire program?
They've capped.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think they're talking about trying to put the vote up there again to get more because, you know, if it's going to start really helping people, and it's changing San Francisco.
Yeah.
That story. So there were 5 of us applying for legacy status or legacy business. 2 of the people were being evicted. Right. So they were just trying to get the legacy status just so they could try to go to the press and say, listen, we're getting kicked out and we've been here for 30 years, 40 years, and we're just getting booted for, you know, higher rents.
Yeah.
Quadrupling, you know. Right. And it's a bummer. It's a sad part of, and a real part of San Francisco now. Maybe some new programs like the legacy business. Maybe it will. Maybe the legacy business is the start of the change.
Yeah.
You know? It's limited to 300, like we said, but maybe something will come from that. Yeah. You know, like maybe the whole local thing too will really take off, so that we can at least save these local businesses.
Yeah, and I want people, because there's that whole thing where a lot of the new people to San Francisco, they come here for jobs, probably tech jobs,
right? And
then they work such long hours that they don't actually partake of much of San Francisco,
right?
And then a lot of these places shut down because of blah blah blah. It's like I just want people to move here for a reason.
Yeah.
Like, you know, other than a job, it's like, look around you. This is, like you were saying, like it's lost a lot, but there's still something going on here, and it's.
Go to Chinatown.
Right.
Go to Chinatown, the older part of Grand Street. It's still here.
Yeah.
I was in the Castro the other day. We were walking to the Castro Theater to watch the Yellow Submarine.
Oh, I was there for that.
Yeah. And we're walking down 17th Street and coming from Dolores Park. We walked all the way up. And total crazy guy yelling at the pole. Some old businesses that I saw, and I felt like it could have been 1980.
Yeah.
You know? People out on the stoop, you know? And still gritty. Mm-hmm. Gritty is what I like.
Yes.
You know? Gritty is like, reminds me of San Francisco. Tenderloin still has it too.
People out on the street.
People out on the street.
Street life.
Yeah.
That's San Francisco to me.
It's there. It's on Valencia Street has it too, but it's sort of different. I'll go to the chapel now, and my daughter plays music, and we'll go. It's definitely a different crowd, and there's people on the street. It all seems to shut down at 10 or 11.
Right.
All right. There's nobody. When we were running the streets, we ran the streets all night, and it was happening all night too. So, gritty. Yeah, I like gritty, and I hope San Francisco stays gritty, and I hope it stays weird too. It's like that's the part that bothers me a little bit when it starts becoming, just everything is like Starbucks and electric skateboards and scooters. There's just so much more to it. There's so much more to San Francisco than that.
That was Mike Lynch of Babylon Burning. For part 2 of this episode, we'll talk with Mike and his wife Judy about their newly reopened screen printing shop and art space, Gallery 939. That drops next Tuesday. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Michelle Kilfeather does original photography for us. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 5th season, we have more than 200 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're able to, please rate and review the show. And drop us a line at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay strong, weird, and healthy. And we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.